Good evening, everyone. I'm going to take you through the automated NED validation solution. Before that, kind of quick intro. So, my name is Eswaramoorthy Ramasamy, but like it's a long name, but you can call me as Ishwar. I'm part of software team, CX India. I have around like 9+ years of experience in terms of automation and orchestration, automating kind of various operations that are involved in like infra elements such as like networks, databases, storages, all even a middleware. So end-to-end automation in terms of service request management and service incidents, like doing auto heal. Like if some problem happen, automatically detect that and based on the knowledge base and go and automate. So that kind of experience I'm from. So today we're going to see a solution. We figured out there is a problem and we found our solution and we're going to present it today. Before getting into that, let's understand the core part of it. The solution is revolving around it, right? So NED. So NED is the network element driver. It enables NSO to understand the different device models. It's nothing but the set of YANG modules which will help NSO to understand different device models. So in order to support some commands, uh, there are different kinds of devices like Juniper devices, Arista devices, Cisco devices. Uh, but how does NSO understand them? NED enables them to understand, right? So based on the commands that are required, so they're going to create corresponding YANG models that will make NSO to understand the different device models. So this is the basic architecture you would have seen in NSO platform, but we're not going to talk about complete architecture. So the solution is going to revolve around the main part, which is the NED. So NED is the one which enables NSO to understand different device models. So there are different types of NEDs that we are supporting today. It could be like netconf. If the devices support netconf, the NSO can directly talk to the netconf devices, or it could be a CLI NED. Most of the Cisco NEDs are based on CLI type, and we also have like SNMP based on MIPS. That's the only option. We also have generic net, so which can be used for talking to any other interfaces like SOAP or REST or any kind of web services. If the device is exposing them, we can write corresponding nets. Okay, so what's the problem statement? So we understood net. So net is the basic thing which will enable NSO to understand different. But like, what's the problem that we are trying to solve here? So each NSO net version, for example, it could be a Nexus net, or it could be a, iOS net, or it could be Arista net. Is going to support set of commands, not all the commands, right? So based on the need, they're going to add up support. They're going to create YANG modules to enable support for the corresponding commands. So as and when there is a need, they're going to add the corresponding commands to the nets. So meaning, so there'll be multiple releases of net. So let's take an example of Cisco Nexus. They would have started with like basic set of commands that are required in based on the service automation requirements. For example, you wanted to do a L3 VPN automation, so corresponding configurations should be supported, right? Unless it's not supported, NSO cannot manage that. So there could be another requirement, and based on that, they will add up support for the means they'll create the YANG modules and then they'll release multiple versions. That means the next version to support it. Now, what is the challenge here, right? So you want to automate some service, or you want to automate some L3 VPN or any other kind of config push. You wanted to know which version of net is going to support my commands, right? So how there could be like 5 lines of configuration. That is the basic need. I mean, that's the basic configuration that you want to push to a particular device. You might be pushing it to different device models also. There'll be piece of configs that you might push it to different set of devices. But how do you know which version of net is going to support that particular config, right? So how are we doing it today traditionally? So let's take an example of sample config here. So this is a sample config I've picked up just to show you how are we doing it today. So what we do is we go to the NSO CLI, and then we kind of type all these configuration one by one to check if the configuration is supported by the current NED version, right? In case if it is not supported, it's going to throw an error. Then we'll reach out to BU and ask them, so this command is not there, this particular configuration is not there, can you help us in enhancing it, right? So it takes around like 5 minutes just for the piece of code. But if you're manually entering it, you might argue that like I'll type faster. So you might say that I can type it in 1 minute, but again, just for the understanding, right? So on an average, it's going to take like 5 minutes to manually enter and validate whether the configuration is supported or not, right? So what's this? What is the impact because of this, right? So service developers who is going to develop or who is going to automate things on your network, they identify some set of use cases and they're going to automate one by one, right? So before automating it, the base thing that we have to do is like we have to validate whether the configurations are supported or on the net or not. So if there are like 4 to 5 use cases that are running in parallel, then developers would be spending, I mean, traditionally, because we are part of CX and we are handling multiple customer projects, and we are generally spending around like 3 to 4 days of effort just to validate the configuration is supported on a particular version or not. So if there are like I think there is an example of like 15 projects running in parallel, or it could be sequential. So it could be like based on the team, right? If the team is larger, so you would pick up multiple use cases and automate in parallel. Or if you have a smaller team, then you'll pick one by one and then you're going to automate it. But either way, you have to spend an effort in order to validate whether the configurations are supported or not. Only if the configurations are supported, then you can go ahead and then develop your complete service, so that and develop the service, then you can deploy it. If it is not supported, then you will have to reach to BU to get it supported, means add it to the YANG, and then you can continue further. So generally it takes like 3 to 4 days of effort. So what we saw in the previous slide, like it's like just a piece of code, but in general the configs are going to run into like thousands of lines. So just to validate these configuration, it takes like 3 to 4 days. And consider a case of 15 use cases that are running in parallel. So you would be spending almost like 45 days of effort just for validating the configuration, right? Now what's the solution? So we have came up with, we are facing this problem quite some time, and we wanted to use the software to help us in validating it. So it's just a copy paste of the configuration or just typing into the CLI. Why not a software do it to us, right? So we thought about a package. We created an action package that will take your NED type as an input and the configurations as an input. You just need to copy paste it and then hit the button. It's going to tell you whether it's valid or not valid on a particular NED version, right? So this is kind of cool. Just same example. I've took a piece of configuration, now doing it in an automated way. So this is the REST client. So what I've used is Postman, but you could also use a curl client, or you can use the Postman as well to test this. So since it's an action-based package, we can use a REST client, or we can also build up a portal on top of this, just to give a user experience that like you can select the NED version, you can copy paste the command, and then you can get the output, right? So it's just 5 seconds. So the same configuration, we were able to validate it in 5 seconds. So we have reduced the time it was taking, like from minutes to seconds, right? So in case if it's going to be a bigger configuration, so it's going to alleviate all of that and it's going to reduce the time. But how does this help, right? So if the time that is spent on the validating the configuration manually can be reduced, then that particular time can be used for actual service development. So it's going to accelerate the development and also the deployment of automation services onto your network. Let's see a live demo. How does it like work? So I've picked up some couple of configuration samples just to show you like how does it work. So we have some samples for Arista we have for Juniper, we also have for Nexus, we also have for iOS XR. So we are going to do it one by one. Let's pick up. Okay. Okay, so this is some piece of config I've taken just for the demo purposes. And then these are the inputs. The first, I hope you can see it. I'll maximize it. Let me try doing it. Yeah, I can. Hope this is fine. Okay. So we have these two inputs. One is the NED ID. It could be like Cisco Nexus, or it could be like any other vendor nets. It could be like iOS, or it could be Juniper, or it could be Arista. Then we have the commands where we have to pass the actual configuration, so that it's going to take that as an input and it will validate it. So let's try with Arista first. I've copied it for Arista. So the config is valid, meaning like I've taken some couple of examples to show that some configs are all of the commands are valid, and some command I also have an example to showcase like some commands are not valid. Okay, now let's pick up an example of Juniper. So I'll have to change the Juniper net. One, two, three, almost like 3-4 seconds, right? So let's also some try with like some bigger configuration. One second. So this is a Cisco Nexus configuration. So I'm going to change the net ID and then hit enter. So it's around like 5-6 seconds to validate the like almost like 50 lines of configuration. You don't need to spend the time typing it manually. Now let's see how does it look like for some commands that are not supported. So here, IP multicast multipath resilient is not supported on a particular version that we are having today. So just to showcase the net version that we are having. So we have like for Arista DCS it's 5.2.12, and then Cisco AS8 6.2, Cisco iOS it's like 6.4, Nexus is 4.5.4. On 4.5.4 version, a particular command is not supported, right? So now how do we get to know that which net version will support this, right? So this is all fine. We can validate the configuration, but how do we get to know the, the same issue could have been experienced by some other project assignments, right? They would have raised a case already, and then the fix would have been already released. How do we get to know this particular command is supported on which particular version of net, right? So we thought about it and we came up with an enhanced solution. Let's go back to the slides. Okay, so the previous solution, what we saw is like it can validate the configuration against a particular version of net, whatever is available on your NSO. But in order to enable validating the configuration against multiple nets, so we were blocked by a particular problem where like you cannot have multiple versions of NSO nets on the same single instance of NSO, meaning I cannot have multiple Nexus versions on a particular instance of NSO. This is before 5.0, but after 5.0, it has something called a CDM, right? Common data model that enables that multiple versions of same net can coexist in a single NSO instance, meaning I can have all the versions of a particular net, Cisco Nexus net, coexist together, right? So we enhance the solution to make sure that we give an option to the user that you give the like start version and also end net version till which you wanted to validate to check. For example, the version starts from A and then version ends in Z, then you can say that like A to Z, then it's going to validate all the versions which are available between A and Z. Now you'll get to know even there are patch releases or major releases. So whichever is actually part of the NSO, then it's going to validate against all of them and give you the results, right? So now just taking the same scenario, so same configuration that we've used for previous study, using the same postman. So this is also an action based additional action where you can trigger it as a put some inputs, provide some inputs and trigger it so that it can actually validate and give you back the results, right? So this is the kind of UI that we have created just to capture the history of the validations, right? So in a bigger group of like development team, so there'll be multiple use cases running in parallel. Development might be running in parallel. So if they're coming and validating the configuration, we also would like to know if there are some commands that are not supported, it should be captured centrally so that the team can get to know this is already validated. You don't need to go and validate it again. So we kind of created a kind of run history where team can actually go there and then check if there are there any kind of invalid configurations. Now there are 6 net versions. In this example, I have this local instance running on my laptop. So I have like added Cisco Nexus version of like 6 nets onto my laptop, and it's able to do it in 10 seconds. It validated the configuration against 6 nets in 10 seconds. Think about a scenario if you're doing it manually, right? So you have to install before 5.0, you have to install a particular net version and then validate it into one by one. And if it's not supported, then we'll have to uninstall that. You have to install the newer version of net and then validate it again and keep on going till you get a newer version. I mean, till you get a version which supports all the commands, right? Now, since 5.0 can support multiple versions of same net, so you have the flexibility of validating the configurations against multiple nets. Let's go for a live demo. How does it work? So we saw that particular version of particular command was not supported on 4.5.4, right? So let's copy that. And then let me do it here. So inputs are the same thing. I mean, like the NED family, it could be Cisco Nexus, or it could be iOS, or it could be Juniper, Arista, based on the type of configuration that you're validating against. We also have start version, which you can specify like from which version of NED you wanted to validate it, right? So for example, you are on a version like 454, you would not be interested in testing it against the versions which are below 454, right? So we can specify a start version, and then we can also specify an end version. For example, that will let you know like what should be the last version till which you have to validate. And then we have the commands where you copy paste the commands. So it will take care of, once you submit the request, it's going to find out like what are the versions that are available between these. So 000 and 999 are the default values, but you can change it to a particular version. So what this means is like it's going to check against all the available net versions between these two, right? So let me hit send. Let's see what it has to say. So now you can see this. I'm trying to validate the configuration. This is a mistake. I'm trying to validate the Nexus configuration against iOS net. Right? That's a problem here. Let me change it. Okay. So the command is not supported on 454, but it started supporting from 4512. From there on, you can see like 551, 552, 556, 593. All these net versions support that particular command, right? So this just happened like 5-6 seconds, right? If there is a bigger config, it might take like 4-5 minutes, depending on like how many number of nets you have, and means how many number of nets you wanted to validate against, and like how big the config is, right? But still, the point here is we are reducing like days of effort into minutes. You don't have to spend time manually to do it. Now it also gives you a URL, so which you can take it and then see the report that we were talking about in the previous screen. We also have a run history. Okay, so you see here, like what's the job ID? Job ID is just the based on the timestamp. It's a random number just to make sure the requests are unique. But again, it could be depending on the environment it is used. We can change the job IDs. And then we have the net family. These are all the input parameters. Input parameter start version, end version. What were the commands that were submitted? And what's the start and end time, and what's the turnaround time. Turnaround time is like how long it took to validate it, right? It's just to give you a feeling of like how long it took. And then we have the results. It's a partial success. So the results could be partial success, or it could be full success, or it could be failed, right? So partial success meaning like some version of NED supported it and some version did not support it. And if it is failed, none of the NED version supported those commands. It could be like one unsupported command, or it could be a list of unsupported commands, right? So in case if it is failed, then it's time to check, are there any kind of new NED versions, and then take them and add it back to your NSO instance. Or if you have all the latest versions, so these are the versions I have now, like 4512, 5454 till 593. 593 is the latest Nexus NET version. If none of these nets supports the configuration that you're trying to evaluate or validate, then it means that it's the time to talk to BU and then get it supported, right? So you don't have to, the moment you see something is not supported, you don't have to talk to BU and then get it done, right? So it could have been supported in some other version. So same thing here. The command is not supported on 454, but it started supporting from 4512. So there is a little version mismatch here, but like 454 is an older version and 4512 is a newer version. So it started supporting from 4512, and then thereon, all other net versions includes support for it. Now going back to the slide, what all net types or device types that we support today? We support iOS, we support Nexus, we support iOS XR, StarOS, DCS, Arista DCS, Cisco, ASA, and Juniper GNOS. All these types of configurations can be validated. Even if you have like 1,000 lines of configuration, you just copy paste it here, and then you'll be able to get it validated in 5-10 seconds. And you can also validate against multiple net versions, whatever is available till date. So where we can use this, right? So what is the use case? So we already saw about like what's the problem point, problem statement, and what's the solution. But whenever you're going to develop some new services from scratch, so you sat with your team and then you identify like these are all the use cases that I can automate with NSO. So you have to start with validation phase. So you can use this in order to validate it faster, so that you can develop and deploy it faster to the production too, so that you'll start reaping the benefits soon. Net migrations, you are migrating from one version of net to other net version. So now how do you know that the config commands or configurations that was supported in a particular previous net, is it being supported on the newer net version too, right? So in those cases you can use it in order to check whether it is working or not. Now you have a bigger team where a lot of teams are working on this. You can have a central person who can actually take care of these net validations. You don't need to make everybody to test on their own. So they just need to, every team just they have to come to this portal and then paste their configuration and check whether it is valid or not. If something is not valid, just one person can actually take care of that and then talk to the VU and then get it done if it is not supported on any of the net versions. Benefits: faster validation. We are reducing it from like days to minutes. Less human error. If you're manually typing it, there are chances that like we are missing some configurations like when typing it. Multi-net. It's not that only we are supporting Cisco, we support other vendors too. High return on investment, right? So this is going to be the time that you're going to get back is it's a very big return that you're getting, so that like you can concentrate on automating the actual services rather than validating it. Accurate results. So wherein since the software is automatically testing it for us, we go through line by line and make sure that these configurations are proper, and then we validate it. So the results are accurate. And self-service. So we can use this API, we can have a kind of portal or a self-service portal on top of this, and then it will take your inputs like in terms of what's the net version, what is the net type, what's the config command that you want to support, validate, just paste it and get it done. But you might ask, like, you just showed on a REST client, but you're talking about self-service portal. That's not a self-service portal, right? So we have something called as business process automation. You would have heard about this in a couple of places. Maybe you are probably using it too. So we have an app called as config validator, where you can actually select the net and then paste the config in there, and then the moment you click the validate, so you have to select the nets here and then paste the config here and then click submit. It's going to give you the results right here. So this portal can be shared to different users, and they can get it done by themselves, whether the config is valid or not. So this, I think we are going to have a demo too, but we also have boots for BPA. There are a lot of other cool features here. So one of the thing that I talked about is the net validation config validator. We also have other cool features. I recommend you to do check out the boot for BPA. We also have OS upgrade service packs, OS upgrade and like other service packs. We have a separate booth for it, wherein like we have some pre-built solution accelerators like packages that you can actually take it and then start your accelerate your automation. So we sat with different customers, and then we understood the generic requirements like that is existing in all the environments, and then we came up with like generic packages that you can use it to kickstart your automation journey. You do please, I recommend you to check that booth too.
Yeah, so we're at 4:45, so you have about another 15 minutes.
Sure, thank you. I'm done. So this is just an example I've pasted here. So where you copy paste the command and then you get to know whether it's valid or not just on the fly. Now benefits, sorry, credits. It's not that I've just built this. We have like a lot of people. Imtiaz, Himran, Syed, Gri. Also, of course, the Bangalore CX software team and also the CX NSO community. We have a bigger community. So it's kind of helping people around. That's it. Thank you.
Well, let's see if we have any questions. Let me turn on the mic. Any questions? Right. All right. Here we go.
I actually have two questions.
Yeah.
The first one is if there's more than one line that is not supported, do I get both or?
Yes, we get both.
So you get all of the
one
lines
by
in?
one.
Okay, perfect.
Right.
And the second question is why would I not take my 10,000 or 40,000 line router config and just paste it in and get all the commands that are not supported?
You can do it. We can do that.
Okay, perfect.
We can
I
copy
envision
complete
a
40,000
large
lines of
tag
and then
case.
paste it and then sorry I did.
No, I envision a large tag case in my future in that case, where all the commands that are not supported that we would need.
I mean, in case if there are more number of commands that are not supported, and if there are different, I mean, like if the same kind of requests are coming from, like that's why we have the job history. So even other people, I mean, other customers can also submit the same, and then they'll get to know that commands are not supported. Then it's like if there are more number of job requests saying that like these means the commands are not supported, it means that there is a potential for actual young modification to the BU.
Oh yeah, one last question. I'm assuming, going to add the rest of the NEDs as support for.
Right, yeah, ongoing.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else in the back? Let's see. You? Yeah.
Hello, I have also two questions. First one, from which version of the NSO, at least the first call to validate one NED is available?
Technically, we can support it from, I mean, we can support all the NED versions, but we would recommend like, and means 5.0 supports all the NED versions which are like above 4.0 NSO.
Yeah, but I saw that in the first example, you are using REST call validate configuration just for one specific NED.
Correct.
Yes, and this one is available in which version of the NSO?
So this is actually not part of NSO. We have developed this as a separate package that can be added to NSO 5.1, and then 5.1 allows to have multiple NED versions, and then it's going to help validating it. So it's a custom service pack. So it's available as part of OS service packs, OS, I mean, like the AS service packs. You can get it either via it, or it is also available part of BPA stack. So wherein you can just, if you're already using BPA, you can use a config validator to get started.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions? So walking forward. Okay.
So when I'm doing a validation for a new service, I want also the XML format. So does this tool generate the XML
so
format?
we actually had Menti question for that. You wanted to have that as an enhancement. So it's on the roadmap. We wanted to do that as well. So once you validate it, so kind of you copy paste the configuration, or you also let know like what are all the variables that you wanted in that configuration. It can automatically convert that into a XML template. So you don't need to do it manually again. So it's on the roadmap. Thank you. That's a good question.
Okay. Anybody else? Questions for Eswar? So I don't see any other questions. Did you want to do a Menti?
Yeah, of course.
Right. He's going to do a Menti, but then I have a couple. I have an announcement for you before you go, so don't go until I announce something. Go ahead, Eswar.
Sure.
So I think it's you have to bring up www.menti.com.
So open www.menti.com. And enter the code 596764. This is just to understand like how it is being done today in your environment. So in general, so the first question is about how long does it take in your organization to validate it today? That's nice. I think we have some automation already there in your environments. Thank you. So going to the next question. So do you think the automated solution will enable you to validate the configurations faster? The solution what we presented, will it enable you? Thank you. And the last question that we have is would you like to have an enhancement to the service pack to generate the templates as well? So this is service lifecycle, right? So once you validate the configuration, then you use that to create a template, and then that will be used for pushing the configurations. So that's the next step. Then you might be also wondering like, okay, you talk about the configuration, what about the services? How do we know that services instances that are part of the previous net, previous net version is also supported in the next version. So that is also in the roadmap. So you'll be seeing it soon. Okay, I think this is interesting. Thank you so much for your time and feedback. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Okay. One more round of applause for Eswar. Thank you so much.